Hi guys, welcome to today's vlog. My name is Mandy Meehan. I am a Nutritional Therapy Practitioner, or NTP, and today we're going to be talking about a highly requested and highly controversial topic, and that is the topic of veganism. I think just about every single YouTuber, whenever they talk about veganism and they're not vegan and they're not recommending veganism, they get a little bit nervous because the YouTube vegan community is really big and really passionate. I think I found the vegan YouTube community about 3 years ago when I first got really sick with my chronic illness, and I thought everything going on with veganism was really interesting. So now 3 years later, I am now a nutritional therapy practitioner, and something I get asked a lot is, why am I not vegan? Why don't I go vegan? What do I think about veganism? Why don't I recommend veganism? Why do I eat so much red meat? I get asked about this topic all the time, and I've definitely been a little bit hesitant to share because it is a really touchy issue. It's really interesting how the world of nutrition can be so controversial, but with veganism, there's a lot of different moral and environmental aspects as well. So, with all of that said, I recognize that a lot of people are not going to agree with me, but that is okay. So this is what I care about. I really care about informed consent. I am not anti-vegan. I am pro-informed consent. And what I can have a problem with is just the fact that so many people are jumping into things and not knowing the potential dangers, or that could potentially really actually hurt their health and not help their health, and that is really frustrating to me. And so what I want to do today is I want to be able to just explain to you from a purely nutrition perspective why I am not vegan and why I don't recommend veganism to my clients. So I want you to do the research. I want you to know not just what you're doing, but know why you're doing it and know all of the science behind it. So never take anything that I say just at face value. Please do your own research as well. Look at both sides. That's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I can't tell you how many vegan YouTubers, and then, you know, there's the blogs and the books and the things that I've followed or I've read or I've listened to. I've really looked at both sides of this as much as I can. So at the end of the day, after all your research, if you really feel like veganism is the right thing for you, you have the freedom to make that choice. I personally just don't recommend it, and I'll get into why. One more thing I want to say, there's no one-size-fits-all diet. Everyone has unique biochemical individual needs. So for different people, depending on their genetics, different SNPs, different single nucleotide polymorphisms, depending on all of that, veganism will work better for some people than others. So that's also something to keep in mind. Now, right now I'm really focusing on the nutritional side. There's a whole other conversation about the environmental aspects of eating animal foods, and I don't want this video to be way too long, but what I would recommend is looking at the work of Diana Rogers. I really love what she does. She has amazing stuff on her blog. I'll link her website, her blog down below. But I just want people to know that there actually are really compelling arguments for actually raising properly prepared animal foods through regenerative farming. It can actually really help the environment and not hurt it. Also, I am not for factory farming, for CAFO operations, confined animal feeding operations. Absolutely not for that whatsoever. Just want to say that. Okay, so the first thing I want to bring up is the fact that there is no healthy culture that has ever thrived on a purely vegan diet. I know there's been cultures that are closer to vegetarian, but never completely free of animal foods. And I really like the work of Weston A. Price, because he studies all these different cultures all around the world that are not on modern diets, they're on their traditional diets, and he actually was really wanting to prove that vegetarianism and veganism was healthy. Veganism wasn't actually a term back then, and his biggest disappointment was actually that he couldn't find a truly healthy vegan culture. So just from an ancestral perspective, I know this isn't really science just yet, but we've been eating meat for a really, really long time. And it's really processed foods that are new to the scene that have come in when all these chronic diseases started to rise. So my biggest concern for vegans or people who just eat whole food plant-based is nutritional deficiencies. I have yet to find a vegan that actually has optimal nutrient levels. It's really, really challenging to get a lot of really important nutrients. In a lot of cases, it's impossible. And also a side note, whenever you go to the doctor and you get your blood levels checked, the ranges they showed there, it's just based on the entire population. So everyone who is sick and everyone who's healthy, they take the average of that. So when I look at blood work, or when a functional medicine doctor or practitioner looks at blood work, they want to look at the actual optimal levels and not just what the average is, if you know what I'm saying. So if you do get your blood levels checked, see if you can find some like functional ranges to see if you actually are in the optimal ranges and not just in the average. So most people on a vegan diet, they will end up deficient in iron and B12. All vegans know, and I would hope all vegans do recommend, I think they do, everyone that I've seen does recommend supplementing with B12 because you can't get B12 on a vegan diet. It's only found in animal foods and it's very essential. It's really needed for energy levels and metabolism especially, and you do have to supplement that on a vegan diet. And then iron, most people are deficient in because plant-based iron, really, it's not absorbed nearly as well as heme iron, which is only found in animal products. Now there are multiple nutrients that you can't get on a vegan diet, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to remember all of them, but there's carnosine, carnitine, creatine, vitamin A and vitamin K2. We'll talk about those more in a minute. There's no cholesterol on a vegan diet, which cholesterol are the precursors for your hormones. Yes, your body can make cholesterol, but I'm gonna argue that your body is not gonna make enough cholesterol for optimal health. Then there's taurine, heme iron. I'm sure I'm missing some, but not all of those are essential nutrients, but for long-term health, long-term thriving, vibrant health, I really recommend getting those into your diet. So, the fat-soluble vitamins. I really like the topic of fat-soluble vitamins because it's really interesting and it matters so much. So, fat-soluble vitamins are vitamins A, D, E, and K. Those vitamins, they work synergistically together, and they're much more bioavailable in animal foods than in plant foods. But then in vitamin A and vitamin K2, it's very, very challenging to get them in plant foods. So vitamin A, this is one of those myths that just kind of, it drives me crazy that it's so prevalent. You know, people always say things like, oh, eat carrots because it's good for your eyes because of the vitamin A. So here's the thing. The plant form of vitamin A is beta carotene. Beta carotene is really the precursor for the active form of vitamin A, which is retinol. Retinol is only found in animal foods. Okay, so you can eat plant foods of beta carotene and it can convert to vitamin A. But here's the problem. The conversion rate from beta carotene to vitamin A is very, very low. And then actually half of the population, because of their genetics, they really can't even make that conversion. So just right there, half the population cannot be vegan because they can't convert beta carotene to vitamin A. And it's tough. I wish that people could be vegan and not have to worry about this, but you can't not worry about it. It's really, really important. It's just as simple as that. So vitamin D, a lot of vegans end up deficient in vitamin D because cholesterol is actually a precursor, and in the vegan diets a lot of times have really high omega-6 fats, and when you have too many omega-6s, it actually competes with the ability for your body's cholesterol to be able to convert into vitamin D. There's a lot of just stuff there, but anyways, it's really hard for vegans to get vitamin D too. So for vitamin K, there are plant-based sources of vitamin K1, but there really isn't for K2. The only source that I know of is natto, which is a fermented soybean. And yeah, I don't know of any other place to get it. So honestly, this whole deal around fat soluble vitamins, that's one of the biggest reasons why I will not be vegan. I don't recommend for people to be vegan. And you may say, oh, well, you can just supplement, but it's really hard to do that well, especially with vitamin A supplements. There's a lot of issues with potential toxicity there. It's really not advisable to supplement with vitamin A. You're always going to be so much better off getting that from food. So another thing with nutrients, just something to understand, is that just because, you know, your chronometer or whatever you're using to see if you're getting enough nutrients on a vegan diet, just because you see this many nutrients on paper doesn't mean that you're absorbing it. And so because so many plant foods they don't have as many bioavailable nutrients, it's just really hard. If you are vegan out there and you really don't want to change, I'd love to be able to help you find ways to be healthier. Nutritional deficiencies over long term, it just can really harm your health, and I don't want that for anybody. There are definitely things you can do to help in these areas, but it's not easy. So then there's the issue of omega-3s. So ALA, or alpha linolenic acid, I always have a hard time saying that. That's the precursor for DHA and EPA. So at this time, there are no studies that show that vegans can convert ALA to EPA or DHA. So it's tough when I see people saying, oh, here's your chia seeds, which is a great source of omega-3s, or flax seeds are my source of omega-3s today. We know they're at least poorly converted, so it's tough because we don't have studies to show that you can convert them at this time. So if you are vegan, something you can do to help get those omega-3s is you could supplement with an algae oil. Now, the problem with this could potentially be toxicity issues with algae oil. You just would really have to work to find a high quality one. At this point in time, I don't know of one to recommend, but that could be something worth looking into. So the final thing, I kind of left the things I think everyone kind of knows, or a lot of people know, for the very end. And just typically, vegan diets are higher in carbohydrates. They're often lower in fat, not always. I watch a lot of vegan what I eat in a days and things like that, and I do just see people often on this blood sugar roller coaster. And I've actually been vegan for, you know, I was plant-based for 3 weeks at a time. I did that multiple years in a row as a fast. I did the Daniel fast, and I didn't really know it was vegan at the time, but I remember feeling better whenever I did it because I was getting off Oreos and processed foods. But I do remember all of the symptoms of dysregulated blood sugar, and that wasn't fun. So balanced macronutrients is really important, and a lot of vegans don't do that. You can find ways to make that work. It's just not really easy necessarily. Then I know this drives vegans crazy whenever people say, well, where do you get your protein? Because I know there are lots of plant-based sources of protein, but what is concerning to me is not just where's your protein, but where are specific amino acids, because it's really hard to get all the amino acids that you need in order to really be healthy. You know, your proteins, those amino acids are the building blocks of your body, and you need them. And then I kind of said this before, but they're often really high in omega-6 fats. Omega-6 fats in itself, they're not inherently bad at all. Actually, there are some really good sources of omega-6s that are amazing for your health, and I want people to get less of the bad omega-6s and way more of the good omega-6s. But you want a good ratio though, and it's really hard for vegans for them to get a good ratio. So then another issue are anti-nutrients in the diet, and there's totally ways to minimize them, but there's often an abundance of foods with lectins, phytic acid, oxalates. So what anti-nutrients are, just in simple terms, they're compounds that actually take nutrients, they bind them, and they carry them out of the body so they're not able to be absorbed. So soaking and sprouting, preparing your food properly, that can definitely help with that. But like for me, if I think about the foods I'm sensitive to, there are a lot of foods that are higher in anti-nutrients, and I don't know how I would be able to make veganism work with all the food sensitivities that I have, and a lot of different people have just really messed up guts. They just have really poor digestion, and just all those anti-nutrients and even the abundance of fiber sometimes can be really too much on the digestive system. So I know that's a lot of information, and I'm sure I missed a lot. There is really so much to this topic and this conversation, and I really don't want to seem really dogmatic about this, and also I just really want to be known for what I'm for and not what I'm against. And like I said, I'm not anti-vegan, I am pro-informed consent. This is why I'm making this video, is because I want you to know about the different potential issues you could run into, and I personally don't think it's worth it for me, and I don't recommend it to other people. But that's the cool thing, is that you don't have to listen to me. You get to do what you feel compelled to do in life. I'm sure there's gonna be questions that come up. There's a lot of other things when it comes to saturated fat and cholesterol that people are worried about. I do have a video on fat, and I talk a lot about that if you're interested. A lot of people are concerned about red meat. I'm really a big fan of the benefits of red meat. I really want to make a video on that in the future. A lot of people may be confused and concerned because they've seen all these studies saying meat causes cancer, meat causes diabetes. And I would argue that there really has never been a properly done study that could show that meat causes any of those things. I'm not gonna pull all of them up right now, again, so this video is not forever long, but that is something I could do in the future, is I could pull up different studies and I could help you see why, just because we see the headline saying meat causes cancer, meat does this, there's really a lot more to it. And you really have to dig into those studies to see that there are a lot of different confounding variables that are leading to that conclusion, that theory, that may or may not be true. So it's fun to talk to you guys about this. I appreciate your perspective, so please leave me comments, let me know what you're thinking, feeling, what your questions are. Again, if you want to know more about the sustainability side of it, Diana Rogers is amazing. Really recommend her. She has a film and a book coming out all about this next year, and I can't wait for that. But she does have a lot of resources out there. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. YouTube is fun. I will see you in the next video. Bye.